Recently on TSN 690 radio, Darren Dreger said that he thinks the Montreal Canadiens would be interested in moving up in the draft. We'll be talking about the implications of that, plus a recent mock draft done by Corey Pronman, a prospect writer at The Athletic, has Montreal picking a guy that you might not expect at number 5, so we're going to be discussing all of that on this edition of Habs Digest. Hello, bonjour, ahoy, and welcome to today's news edition of Habs Digest. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, alongside my co-host, Jesse Poirier. And quickly, before we get into the video, guys, we've been flying past 5,000 subs. Thank you so much. We're on the road to 6,000, hopefully eventually 10. But if you haven't hit that button, do it now. You won't regret it. We promise. Jesse, big topic number 1 today. We think the Habs might want to move up on draft day. Now, I probably should have put a question mark here because, just full transparency, this is pure speculation, and you'll see that in the quote, but I'll bring it up here. NHL Watcher on Twitter, a guy who listens to a lot of radio shows, reports on some news, says that Darren Dreger on TSN 690 in Montreal, talking the Habs possibly moving up spots in the draft, quote, "This isn't hard news," again, not hard news, but keep it in mind, "I think that they are interested in moving. But they're probably more interested in moving up rather than down, and what does that look like, and what is the cost of doing that?" Now, Jesse, this isn't just some guy. This is Darren Dreger, one of the guys who's maybe the most tuned into the NHL sphere that there is. So you gotta think that there might be some legitimacy behind this. But what are your thoughts on the Habs maybe moving up in the draft? And do you think he means maybe more moving up from number 5, or moving up from the Florida pick, or maybe a little bit of both?
I really like this news, and I could see the possibility of moving up with both picks if possible. We know that we wanted to get those 3 first, draft picks in the first round this year. But if we're not able to get those 3, then why not try to really maximize on those 2 that we do have? And, fans of the show will know that I had been advocating for that top 3 pick, all year. So I haven't ruled it out yet, and as we see, we shouldn't. But maybe more of that top 4 pick is maybe what we could be eyeing. A lot of news right now with Michkov. They're kind of trying to make it look like they want Michkov. I'm not exactly sure. So a lot of gamemanship going on right now with the GMs.
It's a very interesting topic, and we'll dive into this a little bit here. I mean, we've seen some news reports, whether they're legit or not, we don't really know, but there have been some rumblings that San Jose might be interested in Michkov. And if they truly are, and Montreal tells them, look, we're not going to take Michkov, and they know Columbus almost certainly isn't, even though they have some Russia ties, they've been high on Will Smith. If you're San Jose, would you be willing to trade down to number 5 if you want Michkov and you let Montreal get number 4? What will that cost Montreal? I don't know. Maybe they trade the 5th pick plus one of their young defensemen and a future draft pick to move up that one spot to guarantee either Will Smith or Leo Carlsson. Who knows? But number 3, Jesse, is the very interesting spot to me. I know you've been on this top 3 train, and to me, number 3 is great because you get your pick no matter what of Will Smith, Matvei Michkov, or Leo Carlsson. But do you really think Columbus would be willing to move that if they're targeting Will Smith? Do you think the Habs would have to guarantee, no, we're not going to take him? Or what do you think it would take to get up to number 3?
That's interesting. That is sometimes part of it, right? Of agreeing of who you're going to pick to kind of be a part of it. But like you said, getting that 3rd overall pick, you're really getting a great selection. And I think that, Kent Hughes wants to give them as many options as possible because we know that this year's draft is so deep. If there's one year where you really want to make a stand and really swing for the fences, you want to try and get that very best player possible, because that's exactly what Montreal needs. They need that firecracker, that offensive game-breaking talent, and we already have a little bit of that on this team, but we definitely need to supplement that some more because we know we want to change our philosophy, our culture of our team. We know even going back 10 years now where kind of our MO has been as an NHL team of being very deep, but while not having that superstar talent on our team. And it's been a long time now. So I think we want to try and break that mold now of where maybe not being so deep, but really having that firepower where it matters the most on that first and second line.
Yeah, historically, Montreal has had a ton of firepower, but in the last couple decades, not so much. You're right, it's been more deep teams, so it's very interesting. I also think it's very possible that Kent Hughes looks... we'll have to see after the game tonight and after the Florida-Toronto series ends, because if Florida wins that series, that pick is going to Montreal, and it'll be at best 29 if they win the series, which is pretty low. But just a quick hitter before we move on to the next topic. Do you think it's ever possible that Kent Hughes looks and says, again, maybe one of these, they have so many young defensemen, you're going to have to move some at some point. You package one of them, and you package the 29th overall pick, and you move up somewhere into the teens, and to maybe use that as leverage in another deal like they did for Kirby Dach last year? Do you think that's ever a possibility?
That's exactly why you stack up prospects like that. You know that they're not all going to get you, they're not all going to get into the NHL. So you really want to maximize and leverage that potential as much as possible. So I feel like that's an excellent example, and that would be an excellent move from Kent Hughes.
Yeah, very interesting. And speaking of defensemen, speaking of some offensive firepower and just interesting prospects in general, we'll move on to the next topic. We had a look. Corey Pronman, prospect writer at The Athletic, has some great articles, mock drafts. He has the Habs taking David Reinbacher, which is a bit interesting. I mean, he's a player, as Corey Pronman says in the staff mock, Xhekaj goes number 4. They had Reinbacher going to Arizona at number 6, but in that scenario, he thinks Montreal actually jumps at the top defense prospect in the class. Either way, I don't think Reinbacher lasts very long lasts very long on draft day. David Reinbacher is a very interesting prospect, Jesse. I mean, he's clearly the top defenseman in this draft. He's a right-handed defenseman who fills a need for Montreal. But personally, if Montreal made this pick, I feel like it would be one of those situations where they're going maybe for fit over actual best player available. Now, we've heard Kent Hughes say they're going for best player available, but maybe they're high on Reinbacher. But to me, I'm not totally sold on taking him at number 5. I just want to get your thoughts real quick.
I'm not either, but at the same time, getting like good right-handed defensemen, you basically always need to draft them. That's basically the only way to get. There's not very many good ones in the NHL, so getting them at the draft, that's definitely the place. And you've definitely seen teams do that in the past, and it's definitely worked out for them. So it's not a terrible strategy. It's definitely a good way to build your team, from the bottom up, so to speak. But I feel like this is a little bit less of a concern for us this year, Josh, because of the emergence of Mike Matheson.
That's true.
If we didn't have Mike Matheson, we wouldn't need this young Austrian defender as much in Reinbacher. I don't feel like we'll need him as much just because Mike Matheson fills those voids of just that mobile, puck-moving type of defenseman. So I feel like he's just been a total revelation this year. Otherwise, I'd definitely be more open to this type of move.
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? Because, if you look at this Habs roster construction, right-handed defense, other than goalie, is probably the biggest weakness. Right now, David Savard is the top-pairing right-handed defenseman, and I guarantee you, there's very few teams in the league that he would be a top-pairing defenseman on. Justin Barron and Jonathan Kovacevic kind of fill out the other two actual right-handed defensemen, while we had times this year that someone like Jordan Harris would fill in on the right side if needed, because he has a bit of experience at right D, and of course someone like Chris Weidman. So it's really not a position of depth for Montreal. But again, Jesse, when it comes down to drafting for fit above best player available, I feel like we've discussed this already at length, that's just not often a recipe for success. And in this case here, this means and they said in their staff draft, what'd they say, Matvei Michkov went 4? That means that one of Will Smith and Leo Carlson's available in their draft. If one of Will Smith or Leo Carlson's available, in your world, would you ever pick Reinbacher at 5?
No, because we're trying to concentrate on our offensive output. Again, for many years, going back to just some recent trends with the Canadiens, is historically over the past decade, we've been a little bit of the lower scoring teams in the NHL. And Ken Hughes has said that he wants to really shape this team off of more of an offensive approach, which obviously is much different to the Bergevin area where we were concentrating on defense a little bit more. So I feel like we would definitely want to go for a dynamic offensive player with the 5th overall pick.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. And let us know down in the comments below, do you think the Habs might trade up? And if they don't, do you think that David Reinbacher could be a feasible pick at number 5? Because I don't think it'd be a bad pick. I just think there are better players available. And that's kind of what it comes down to. There's so much talent in this draft. We're so excited to see who Montreal ends up landing. And I'm sure we'll be making a lot more videos on this topic as we approach the draft. But for now, that'll do it for this news edition of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, a comment, subscribe to the channel. Help us reach 6K. We're not really that far away, and all your support is really, really appreciated. I'm Josh Gosse for my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.